What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Just posted the DraftKings and FanDuel Thursday Night Football picks, and now we're going to look at the PrizePicks video. So once again, I got 5 props for you guys that I'm looking at for tomorrow that I like. Let's get started. If you guys enjoy the videos, appreciate it. The like button, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out the links down below in the description. Not waste too much time. Not very often do you have a showdown where you have both projected quarterbacks to be under 200 yards passing, and not only that, but you have Trubisky at 191.5 and Brissett at 185.5. If I had to lean the over on any of these two, on either one of them, it would be Brissett, just because I expect them to score more points. They're at home. Trubisky on the road against a stout defense is still a little bit scary, although the Browns did kind of give up a lot of points to the Jets last week. A lot of that did come at the end, which, not really something you can count on happening every week. Kind of fluky. Rushing yards, both quarterbacks are at 9.5. Once again, Trubisky's kind of not really been hitting that too often. And then Brissett has been. He had 43 rushing yards last week. He will take off and run a bit. So once again, I like Brissett over passing and his rushing yards compared to Trubisky. But there's still some other props that I've highlighted that I like a little bit better than counting on Brissett, honestly. We have Najee Harris at 52.5. Has always been kind of a roller coaster with Najee Harris. He gets a lot of touches, but sometimes he only gets, a lot of the time he'll get like 2.5 yards per rush or 3.2 or 3.3 yards per rush. So it's always a little bit inconsistent and tough to count on. At least on like props like this on fantasy. He typically has like a decent performance just because he's getting so many touches, and all it needs is like one touchdown to really make your fantasy line look special or look at least decent. Chubb at 82.5, just rushing yards. It's also, you probably lean over, but it's not something I am confident in. I do like Hunt at rushing yards, but I like his passing props better, so we'll be touching on those. Going over to the receiving yards, not really have too much confidence in the receivers. I do like some of these tight ends overs, like Freiermuth over 35.5 is one that I like, just with the amount of targets and receptions that he's been getting and will continue to get with Trubisky. He's gotten 17 targets through the first 2 weeks. Last week didn't really do too much, but it was a tough matchup and they looked awful offensively. Still a tough matchup this week, but who knows? He still got the targets last week, just didn't go for too many yards. But 35.5, this one could also be hitting the over like very quickly. If it happens in the first quarter, it could happen in the first half. Claypool is tough to trust at 37.5. Njoku played almost over 90% of snaps, played like 95, 96 last week. So I do like his over at 25.5. Wanted to take a shot with him. Chubb, I like Hunt better with his receiving props just because sometimes he'll get a couple passes, sometimes he won't. It's only a very low number, 8.5. But I would probably still like to get to Hunt's receiving props over Chubb's. Najee Harris at 17.5 looks great as well. His receptions is also looking pretty tasty, so we'll touch on that. And then in terms of the two number 1 receivers, Cooper and Deontay Johnson, do like Cooper more for being 4 yards less, but he's also risky, as we saw with his Week 1 performance. Passing plus rushing yards, both guys are pretty similar, although Brissett's lower at 202.5, and he probably gives you more rushing upside, so take him over Trubisky, I'd say. Don't have anything really on rushing plus receiving yards. The fantasy score, they just have the kickers in here for some reason. They haven't posted the quarterbacks or the receivers or the running backs, so we'll see if they post it tomorrow, which they hopefully will. In terms of the board that I'm looking at a lot is receptions right now. We have pretty low props on some of these, like Najee Harris at over 3 receptions I like. Probably can be a push. He's pushed in 4 or 5 games at least, with a couple that he's cleared well with 5 receptions in 2 games, and we'll probably see a lot more dump-offs with Najee Harris still. They don't really have a backup running back they'd look to, so he's in there on third down situation a lot of the time, and with Trubisky looking to just dump it off, he'll catch some passes and get some targets. So he's pretty safe. Another one that's very appealing to me is Kareem Hunt over 2 receptions. You can either pick from Nick Chubb at 1.5 receptions or Chubb at 2 receptions, and for me, it's pretty clear that go with Nick Chubb. He's gotten 2 receptions both games at least. He's averaging 3, and last week he got like 15 touches. He's going to continue to get a lot of touches, and he's the better pass catching back than Nick Chubb. So he tends to come on the field a lot in passing situations, or they both can line up alongside each other. But 2 receptions, once again, just like Najee Harris. Probably worst case will be a push. I'm expecting a clear hit, though, for both of those. So, like I mentioned on the DraftKings and FanDuel video, loving the running backs in this week. So, I prefer them over the receiving props, prefer them over the quarterback props. And then we even have like some kicker props that I definitely don't hate. Fantasy score with Katie York. Take the over on him at over 7. Last week, I believe his number might have been, I'm not exactly sure, but missing that point after attempt probably would have put him at a push, if not a hit, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but he's only at 7 against the Steelers, which once again you can see like kind of like a close game, maybe not a ton of touchdowns scored, or the running backs do well, but I could see both teams have to rely on their kickers a little bit, just with the defense is that they're going up against, and the quarterback play on both sides isn't great, so don't have too much confidence in red zone situations resulting in touchdowns. So York with the strong leg of his at only 7 fantasy, I like that. And then once again, punt if you think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I'm looking at the Steelers punter. He has a couple of games. Week 1, he had 8 punts against Cincinnati. Last week, he only had 4. He didn't have a ton of possessions last week against the Patriots. They had Trubisky threw an interception, and then the Patriots did have like 1 or 2 longer drives, and then so we didn't hit the over last week. But week 1 did go into overtime against the Bengals, so he got 1 extra punt there. But he had 7 in regulation and 5.5 against on the road. Short week. Think both teams might struggle a little bit, but especially the Steelers to move the ball. So if you wanted to take a shot on, never did a punter over punts, but I mean, that hasn't even been on here too long. So that's one that I would like, especially compared to the other punter on the other side. But if you're not comfortable with that, you don't have to. You can leave it off. But that's what I got. Sometimes PrizePicks, you got to make it a little bit ugly, especially on a showdown like this. It's not like you don't have great players to put in here, elite players. But Freiermuth over 35.5, Najee Harris over 3. You got a couple of like Chubbs or Hunt's elite. 2 receptions, York 7, and Presley Harvin over 5.5 punts. That's what I got for you guys tomorrow on PrizePicks for this Thursday night. Let me know what you guys think. If you have other props that you feel confident in, maybe you take a over on Trubisky interceptions, but we'll see. That's what I'm looking at for tomorrow. Best of luck. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.